Making puppets for stop motion takes a really long time. They need to be able to do a lot of things. They need to be very resilient. They basically need to withstand people touching them for hours upon hours. This is Prince. He's the Prince of Colors, and he's kind of a companion character to Kurt and Carla. Since they can't talk, he's going to be doing most of the talking. So I've made this work drawing, and I basically made him to be the right size, the right proportion, and I put an armature inside so I can see exactly where everything needs to go. Let's start with the faces. His face is divided into 2 parts, and he has 45 unique mouth shapes that he can use for emoting and lip sync. There are 6 foreheads, and that gives us hundreds of options to combine the 2. But before we did that, we hand sculpted the face. This is very common for us to do, as it's easier to quickly bulk out a shape by hand. Then we can 3D scan it, and we'll get it in the computer where we have a lot more control. I then bring him into ZBrush, where I can change anything that we want to change and give him the final texture that we want him to print with. Once we're happy with the look, we can rig him, 3D animate him, and then finally print all of the faces. Now he's been primed and he's ready to be painted. So I start inside of the mouth, making sure that I get the paint into all the nooks and crannies in there, which can be a bit difficult because it's so small. But starting with the mouth allows me to be a bit more messy without having to worry about ruining the rest of the paint job. Now, having done that, we're ready to put on the base color of the skin. I have enlisted the help of my colleague Johanne here to make it go a little bit faster, and I'm very glad I did, because even though we were 2 people, this took us a really long time to do. Now that all of the faces have a base coat, I can go in and add details like blush and highlights to really make the cut texture on his face pop. And I can then go in and add the lips and nostrils and small final details like that. Here I'm adding a little bit of a blue color to the inside of his eye. This is a stylistic thing that we do to all of the principal characters of Out of Words, and it's one of my favorite parts. Here you see an armature for his foot, and usually we would make the feet out of something flexible like silicone, but for the prince we wanted to go a little bit faster and make it a bit more rough, so we decided that he would have hard, solid feet, but they would be able to move, kind of like an articulated doll or a ball-jointed doll. So now I'm trying to figure out how to make that happen and encase this armature into a 3D printed foot that I've previously made, which is quite a challenge. Now we can test the movability, and it's looking pretty good so far. I'll need to do a couple of changes, but first I have to put some milliput on the sole to encase the armature in there. Milliput is a 2-part epoxy that hardens into this very hard stone-like material that can then be carved and is very strong and durable. Once that is hardened, I go in with my knife and I can then sculpt it into the shape that I want. And at the same time, I'm also adding this cut texture that we have all over the body of the prince. Unlike Kurt and Carla, who are human characters, we wanted Prince to appear a bit more like a puppet. So I'm giving him this cut texture all over his body to kind of make it appear like he was carved out of wood. And I think this is going to be really nice and catch the light very well. Now it's time to start on the rest of his body. So the first step is to make the hard points. Hard points are basically just a hard material. In this case, we're using balsa wood. And we're doing this to just bulk out the parts of his body that won't be bending, like an elbow or a knee or the spine. In this way, we have something solid for the animators to grab so it won't be collapsing during animation. The way that I like to do hard points is to sandwich an oversized piece of balsa wood around the armature so it's on there really nice. And then I can basically go in and carve it down to be the size and shape that I want. When working on shaping the body of a character, I'm always using my work drawing, making sure that I have everything nice and centered and that things aren't getting too big or too small for the silhouette on the drawing. While adding hard points, I'm constantly checking to make sure that the character is as flexible as we need it to be. And if something is in the way, I will go back and I'll make sure that it's working the way that we need it to. You can see here that I left a bit of a gap between the hard points, and that's because I'm going to be adding some foam now. The foam is there to bulk out the areas that need to be able to stretch. Since the foam is kind of stretchy, once I bend the knee, it'll stretch over the knee but still maintain some of that shape. I'm trimming away the foam to make sure that I have the correct silhouette, but I am leaving it a bit oversized because I don't want to have a concave area right where the knee is. Now I'm done adding all the hard points and all the foam, and I'm putting him into this little sort of bathing suit shapewear situation to make sure that the foam stays inside and doesn't poke out in weird ways. This is very helpful to just smooth out his overall shape underneath his costume. This shapewear is made out of a very stretchy material to make sure that it doesn't get in the way of his flexibility at all. You can see here that I've added holes into the hard points so that I can tighten the screws in his armature and access the rigging holes for animation. Now that his body is all done, I hand him off to my colleague Johanne, who is working on his dress shirt. Johanne has also simultaneously been working on his pants. So let's take a look at how that's been going. First, we pick out some fabric. Here I'm doing a test where I score the fabric with my fingernail, and if it holds the crease once I release it, I know I'll be able to get nice, crisp folds. Finding the correct type of fabric in the right color that you need can often be very, very hard when working in a miniature scale. So here I am dyeing the fabric since it didn't have the right color that we needed it to. Now Johanne can work her magic and make some very cool pants for Prince. In stop motion, we're always trying to find ways to make sure that things stay consistent over a long period of time with a lot of touching. So here Johanne is spraying the pants with spray starch, which will allow her to sculpt folds into the pants while they're wet, and once they dry, it'll hold the fold very nicely. Now the pants are done and Johanne is painting shadows and highlights onto the pants. This is to give them a bit of extra contrast so that they read very nicely in the camera. Meanwhile, I have been working on his hands and they're now ready to be painted. These were sculpted in the computer and posed into a bunch of cool different poses. On some of our other characters like Kurt and Carla, we have silicone hands, which gives you a lot of range of movement, but for Prince we want him to be a bit more rough. So we decided to limit his hand movement a bit by making replacement hands. So he has a limited set of hand gestures that he can do, but I know that our animators can make it look amazing anyway. The hands and feet get a similar paint job to the faces with a base coat, some blush, and a bit of highlight. But in the end, I go back in with this brownish red sort of color to put onto his fingers and toes because he is a messy guy and he loves colors and paint and he gets into all sorts of messy stuff. Over on Johanna's desk, we have his head that she's currently adding hair to. The hair of the characters in Out of Words is paper. So right now Johanna is gluing paper onto his head to make a tight ponytail. Once she has a good ponytail base, she goes back in to add these loose, messy strands to make his hair look windblown and messy. Now we're getting close, we just need one final thing, and that is his leather jacket. He's wearing this very cool red oversized leather jacket and I'm extremely excited to work on it. Before this, I spent a bit of time designing the jacket, giving it some very cool seams and making sure that those seams align with where we need to have rigging holes and holes to be able to reach the screws. But now I can just follow that pattern and make my nice little hand-sewn decorative seams. Same as the pants, this jacket gets a bit of a paint job to make sure that it really pops and has some nice contrast once it gets into the camera. Here I'm using a red shoe polish to darken up some areas in a color block fashion. This is working really well to separate the different areas and highlight the design of the jacket. I added wire all around the edge of the jacket so that you'll be able to animate it, since it's an open, very baggy sort of jacket. I round off the edge of the wire and sew it to the jacket to attach it, and then it is done. And that's the final part, so now we can put him together and see how he turned out. After months and months of hard work, he's finally done, and I think he turned out so well. He's honestly my favorite puppet that I have ever worked on.
Hey, I've got you.